So I had a couple people ask, so I figured I'd put together a quick video to show how I actually combined our beloved Linda Campbell playing Christ the Lord is Risen Today with our couple, Richard and Elizabeth Chianhara, leading the hymn congregationally for our Sunday service video for Easter 2020. So the first thing we do is I went out to Facebook and I found the video of Linda playing Christ the Lord is Risen Today on her Facebook page, and she recorded 2 verses. And so the first thing I did was bring up the video, and if you actually, I'll click play for a second. So for this project, I'm obviously thinking at this point, I absolutely need to have the audio and I absolutely need to have the video. So what I did was I right-clicked on the video and I said show video URL. I then clicked on it and I right-clicked and said copy to copy it to my clipboard. Then I went to a third-party site called fbdown.net where you can paste in the link for the video and then you can click download. Then it's going to ask you, do you want to download in normal quality or in HD quality? So I'll go ahead and just say HD quality. And what will happen is the browser will actually download the video in a separate window here. I'm using Safari. If you're using something like Chrome, it may actually download the file or prompt you to save it somewhere on your system. But at this point, the video has been downloaded. So what I'm going to do, download it in the browser. So I'm going to right-click and say download video. And you'll see that it's going to download the actual video to my system. Here's the file name right here. So the next part would be to take the video into my video editing software and actually go in and chop up what I need and replace some content that I don't want with content that I do. So I'll cover that next. So as I mentioned, there was some content in here that I didn't necessarily want in my video, and it was the person filming the video essentially made some comments at the end of Linda playing the second verse. So at the end of the second verse where the notes would ring out so that she could then potentially play a third or fourth verse, whoever was filming, that was the end of the video, and they essentially made some comments. So this is what I had here.
That's good.
So as you can hear there, they said, okay, that's good. So I didn't necessarily want that in my actual video, and I also needed more than 2 verses of Linda playing so that we could accommodate Richard and Elizabeth singing 3 verses. So what I did was I went into my video editing software, and I created a project where I brought in the original video from Facebook. And essentially what I did first was I said, okay, I need to make it so I can have 3 verses worth of music. So you can see here, I'm going to let this play and kind of talk over it as it plays. This was her regular introduction. And then a sustain, and now she's playing through the first verse. Okay, so she stopped there and let the notes ring out, and then she actually played a second verse. So we'll let that play. So this was a natural sustain from the first verse into the second verse. Now you'll notice that there was a little bit of a bounce there in the video. And another little giveaway that I'll show here is you'll notice that the clock says Wednesday 2:18. But essentially what I needed to do was I needed to clip out the section where the person filming said, okay, that's great. And I had to replace it with a section of Linda sustaining the end of a verse. And so if we go back to the very beginning of the video, you'll see here that we have Linda playing the introduction, and then this next yellow highlighted square here is the actual section that I snagged to reproduce the sustain at the end of each verse. So if I go ahead and play, so that right there is the sustain section. But you'll notice that this section of video, the time now switches to Wednesday 2:17 up in the video here. So when I go back over to my verse groups here, the way that I built this was, this is actually a group of clips. So if I go ahead and click on this, you can see that it's broken up into two sections. This section here is Linda actually playing the second verse in her video where she originally did 2 verses. And then at the end, I then throw in that section to sustain so that it essentially creates a natural sustain to then flow into the third verse of the song. And so once I have this as a group, I can then take that and, copy and paste it as many times as I need it for the project that I'm working in. So basically, if I go ahead and let this play, again, towards the end, you'll see a little jump in the video, and that's the sustain section. But now it's starting another copy of this, essentially all over again. Essentially have 4 times through of the same piece of music, which makes it really convenient so that we can actually have someone sing multiple verses of the hymn. So that's kind of what I had to do with the clip of Linda. And once I had this all mixed the way I wanted it to, and I had my 4 claps at the beginning, this essentially provides a track that I could then send to Richard and Elizabeth to play on their phone so that when they actually record themselves singing to the music, everything will be in sync when they send me their clip, because I'll basically have those claps as a way to line up the actual sources of audio from both Linda's video as well as from the T and Harris video. So the next thing I had to do was I took the videos from Elizabeth and Richard and I brought them into a project as well. And so you can see here we have Elizabeth and Richard doing a reading and then an introduction. They introduced the hymn and that Linda would be playing along with us remotely.
It's risen today, and Linda Campbell will be accompanying us remotely.
So I have those 2 clips here. And then the next thing you'll notice is a group with 2 clips in it. So this group, if I go ahead and expand this group, you'll see that I have the Linda video right here on the right, and then I have Richard and Elizabeth's video here on the left. And you can see as far as how it's laid out on the screen, what I had to do was I essentially shifted over Richard and Elizabeth's video. So, the part of Richard's shoulder is cut off. But I shifted their video over a little bit. And then on top of that, I overlaid Linda's video. And I put that over here because it was filmed portrait versus horizontal. So it actually worked pretty well. And then to kind of give a pronounced accent to Linda's video, what I did was I just put a drop shadow. You can see a little drop shadow here between Richard and Elizabeth and Linda's video, So if I select Linda's video, you can see that I applied this drop shadow. I gave it a positioning of the bottom left corner, and I set the opacity and the color and whatnot. The other thing you can see here is the actual lining up of the audio sources. So this is where it gets a little tricky, but this is where the 4 claps came in handy. But basically, you can see that's where Linda's video starts. This is where the T and Hara's video starts. And I essentially just nudge it tiny little bits at a time until everything is perfectly lined up. And then what I did was their video and Linda's video together kind of offered a good balance of the audio that was featured in the video. So essentially, I then grouped those things together into a group within my video software. So when the whole thing plays, you then get this as the result. And you'll see, too, that there's also a transition here, this big green. Let me shrink this down a little bit. This big green square is actually a fade-in transition, so that's where we get the fade.
Seeing us remotely.
So that's how I got their 2 videos together and was able to essentially lay them out how I wanted to lay them out and give the effect on the edge of Linda's video and do the fade in. And then finally what I did was I have a master project that I use to actually put the whole service together. So for example, you can see the intro sequence here. You can see the bulletin. You can see the pastor's welcome. You can see Matt reading the passage from the Bible this morning. And then what I did was I basically brought in the fully rendered, compiled version of the video with Richard and Elizabeth. And you can see here that the video clip itself fades in between Matt and them, fades in. I also have a text overlay with their names as well as the Holden Chapel logo. So if I scroll all the way up, those are my topmost tracks. So I have name overlay here, and then I have the logo overlaid in the corner as well. The name overlay group is made up of the black colored background that's semi-transparent, as well as the text layer featuring the person's name. And you can see that I have it fade in, and then I have it fade out. So you can see that right here, fades in, fades out. But then if you go down to the actual song, you'll see that I have a shape here. This is going to be an entire square covering the entire screen to prepare for having the lyrics show. So you'll see how it kind of fades into a blackish color. And then you can see the lyrics coming up. So each of these little blocks here is a set of the lyrics. So yeah, basically piece of cake. Hope this was enjoyable to see the geekiness and how I put this together. I hope it was a blessing to everybody. I was definitely blessed having the privilege and honor to be able to do something like this and to actually take 2 very special people from our congregation and actually combine them together. At first, what was going to be unknown to anybody. I didn't know that Linda was going to be putting this on Facebook. And I didn't know that we were going to be able to even use it and pull it together quick enough to have it in the video. But everybody involved, I just really thank you. It was really awesome to be able to do that. So I hope you all have an awesome Easter. God bless you.